So my name is Paul Wolf. I am the president of the New York Coalition for Open Government. We are a nonpartisan, nonprofit organization dedicated to addressing open government issues. Today, I want to talk about the Buffalo Bills Stadium project. So those of you in the Western New York area, are probably familiar with this project. Those of you that may be further away from Western New York may not be as familiar. So let me give you a little bit of background. So the Pagulas, as owners of the Buffalo Bills, conducted a study to determine whether they should renovate the current stadium or to build a new stadium. And this is all speculation because the study hasn't been released, but what's been reported is that study took a look at several stadium locations, the cost benefit of renovating versus building new. And that study has been shared with Erie County officials, where the Bill Stadium is located, state officials, and there are currently negotiations going on behind closed doors regarding the feasibility of a new stadium and the cost of a new stadium. So the whole basis of those closed door negotiations is this study, which everyone has except for the public. So the public is being kept in the dark as to what this study says, yet that is the whole foundation and the whole basis for the dollars that are going to be asked for from the public. So our organization is calling upon Governor Hochul to, she has publicly stated that her administration is going to be a hallmark of transparency, a new era of transparency. Well, in that regard, she should release the stadium study that has been completed. So what has occurred so far is a local reporter in Buffalo did file a FOIL request for the study with Empire State Development, and Empire State Development denied the FOIL request. As I'm sure all of you know, in New York, there's a presumption that any documents held by government officials are presumed to be open and available to the public. There are 9 exemptions that can be reasons for withholding documents. And the reason given by Empire State Development was that releasing the study would impair an eminent contract. And it is my position as an attorney who is very familiar with the Freedom of Information law is that that reason is a misapplication of the law. And I sent out this morning a copy of a letter that we forwarded to Governor Hochul, and attached to that letter is a court opinion and an opinion from the New York State Committee on Open Government, which supports releasing the stadium study. The court decision is from 1991. It's a New York County Supreme Court decision. You can read it. It's very short and to the point. And that decision actually involves the Trump Real Estate Development Corporation. And in New York City, Trump was proposing a development project, and a local community board filed a FOIL request seeking copies of documents regarding that project. And the planning board denied the FOIL request on the basis that releasing that information would impair an eminent contract. It went to court, and the community board won in court. The court decision stated that that basis for not releasing documents because it may impair a contract applies when there's a competitive situation. The whole point of that section of the law is if Pagula was competing with someone else to build a stadium, well, then, yeah, it would make sense to not release the stadium study. Their competitor shouldn't be able to see their analysis and use that for their bids. That's the whole point of that exemption, is if you're in a competitive situation, yes, documents should be withheld. But that's not the situation here. The only person negotiating for a stadium are the Pagulas. There are no competitors. There's no one else. Everyone has the information except for the public. So the court decision clearly supports the stadium study should be released. There's also an opinion from the New York State Committee on Open Government. There's several of them. I just attached one, which reaches the same conclusion. Again, that the point of that exemption is when there's a competitive process. So this is an opportunity for Governor Hochul to show her commitment to transparency. There is no legal reason for withholding this stadium study. I would love to hear the justification as to why it should be withheld from the public, as to how that would impair the ability to get a contract. If anything, it may be beneficial to the public to get a better deal as far as the amount of tax dollars that are going to be requested. So that's our stance on the study. We also have a second point, and that is there should be an opportunity for the public to be heard before any votes occur to commit public funds. In 2013, when the Buffalo Bills lease was extended, a new lease agreement was reached, there was no opportunity provided by the Erie County Legislature or the New York State Legislature for the public to be heard. It was rushed through. In fact, it didn't even appear on the meeting agenda as far as notifying the public in the Erie County Legislature before they approved it. That can't happen again. We're talking about the expenditure of several $100 million. The public should have the opportunity to be heard at several community meetings across the state for the legislators to hear whether the public supports this or not. We're not taking a position as an organization whether this makes sense or not, but our position is the information should be provided to the public and the public should have the opportunity to be heard. It's been done differently in other communities. The Jacksonville Jaguars right now are in the process of seeking to build a new stadium. They have scheduled 14 public meetings to present their information to the public and to answer questions. That hasn't occurred here in New York State. In San Diego, back in the early 2000s, they had a public process where there were 50 public meetings held when discussing a new stadium for the San Diego Chargers. That hasn't happened here in New York. I have to give a shout out to Assemblymember Burke and Senator Gallivan. They have introduced legislation calling for the stadium meetings to occur in public. We support that. There's no reason why this conversation and discussion can't occur in public. Information should be provided to the public. The public should be heard. So Governor Hochul has committed to transparency. She has the bully pulpit. She has the most powerful position in all of New York State. And she can have this study released today if she was inclined to do so. So that's what we're asking for. It's been very disappointing that we have sent letters to the County Executive Mark Poloncarz asking him to commit to transparency. We have not received a response. We have sent emails to every single Erie County legislator asking whether they support releasing the stadium study and whether they support a process where the public can be heard. The only legislator I've heard back from is legislator John Mills, and he has only expressed a commitment to hearing from the public. He was unwilling to even commit to releasing the stadium study. So across the board, our elected officials are silent or missing in action, and we need someone to stand up for the taxpayers, someone to stand up for transparency for the public. Perhaps that someone can be Governor Hochul, because so far at the Erie County level, it's no one. So with that said, I will open it up to questions. I have muted you all, so you'll have to either raise your hand virtually or unmute yourself if you would like to ask a question. Anyone?
Hi, Mr. Wolf. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Ron Plants from Channel 2 in Buffalo. I understand your first point. The second point about the hearings. Do you have any concerns, though? Again, we're told supposedly that the clock is ticking for the 2023 lease on Highmark with the Bills. And Rakuya, who is a spokesperson for Pagola Sports and Entertainment, I've heard him say any number of times, if we don't have a deal by then, we may be gone. So do you have any concern if you would have public hearings that could kind of gum up the works too, to be completely honest, with state government, knowing how bureaucratic it is? Look at the Skyway, all the hearings we've had on that, environmental assessments, things of that nature. Now that we're on a deadline here, do you worry that public hearings, could that be a bit of an impediment to getting a deal done before that 2023 deadline?
I don't think so. I think there's plenty of time to reach a deal and present it to the public. I just don't see it as being that hard to do. I would imagine what we're talking about here is that the county legislature, Erie County legislature, before they vote, let's have an opportunity for the public to be heard, either at their meeting or other meetings. I don't think it's difficult to set up or arrange. Chances are there aren't going to be very many if they do it at all. So I think there's still plenty of time. Anyone else?
Any indication of other lawmakers or other entities that you're hearing on that would like to sign on to that legislation? I know you've endorsed it, from Senator Gallivan and Assembly Member Burke. But obviously with the legislature being out right now at the state level, I know they did this apparently, according to Senator Senator Gallivan's spokesperson, back in 2018, it did pass the state Senate. It did not pass in the Assembly back in 18 when they were talking about renovation costs, things of that nature. I don't know, are you picking up anything from other lawmakers? You said they're absent. Are you hearing anything else?
I have not heard anything else. We plan to pursue contacting other elected officials regarding that legislation and seeking their support. You are correct that it was introduced in 2018 and passed the Senate. So my hope is that we can move that legislation forward. Again, especially if the governor is committed to transparency. The governor can make this happen. She's talked about a hallmark of transparency, a new era of transparency. Here's a perfect opportunity for you to do that. Anyone else?
Chris Bolt from WAER. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Are you concerned that the Hochul administration might be going down a path that former Governor Cuomo was criticized for, just, sort of back alley dealing on everything?
Well, I think it's too early to tell, but there's no doubt Governor Cuomo, when he first came into office, he promised the most transparent administration in history, and he failed miserably. There's no denying, you all know as reporters, you dealt with his administration, that his administration was about backroom deals and secrecy. Governor Hochul has publicly pronounced that she's not going to be like Cuomo. So we're still early in her administration, but I think an issue like this is, again, a perfect opportunity for her to show how committed she is to transparency. And if we can't get this stadium study released, then that's a clear sign that not much has changed, because this shouldn't be hard. Government officials who are negotiating on behalf of taxpayers should be interested in sharing this information to the public. Keeping this secret only benefits the Pagulas. How does it benefit the public? Your job as an elected official is to represent taxpayers and the public. You should be calling for the release of this study. The silence is unbelievably disappointing. Anyone else? And
Yes.
I think this issue may very well be litigated. And if it is litigated, I think they're going to lose in court. So again, Hochul has the opportunity to be ahead of this by coming out for releasing the study, or a court is going to rule that the study needs to be released, and you missed the perfect opportunity to have transparency be a big part early on in your administration. The New York County Court decision, the opinions from the New York State Committee on Open Government are clear. I can't imagine that this case loses in court. I would love to hear Empire State Development or anyone else's justification as to why this study can't be released and how it would impair obtaining a contract. I would love to see them have to prove that in court. I don't think they can. Anyone else?
Are you aware of any efforts in that direction at this point?
Well, right now, I believe Investigative Post is filing an appeal of their denial. Our organization, the New York Coalition for Open Government, has filed a FOIL request as well. We just received an acknowledgement to that request yesterday. I expect that request is going to be denied. I expect we will appeal, and either Investigative Post, our organization, or someone else, I expect will probably litigate this issue. I know other reporters have filed FOIL requests as well. And again, why do we have to go to court for something this simple? This shouldn't be this hard. This should be easily something public officials can get behind. Anyone else?
I have a question, Paul.
Yes.
I just had a couple of points. I think to keep doing foils to electeds and being ignored is really in and of itself disrespectful to the New York State taxpayers as well as the media. And the gentleman from the media who just spoke on, are you concerned about them walking away or having no deal? I think the threat of no deal is coercive, and I don't feel it should be used as a hammer to Bills fans and taxpayers to submit to this threat. In other words, if you don't play in our sandbox, we're leaving. That seems awful. And the last thing is, somewhere along the line, it's my understanding there would be a public hearing before $1.4 billion of my tax dollars would be spent. So there would probably be a public hearing. And I think you would need time to review and absorb some kind of a complex legal legal contract. I mean, Paul, you're an attorney, I'm not. So if there's a 25-page type thing, I would think that I might want to look at it before I spoke. And lastly, if they submit this so-called document that they're hiding now at the 5 o'clock news on Friday, and the hearing is held on Monday morning at 9 o'clock, I think that's problematic as well. Thank you.
Thank you. That's one of our members, Maria Tisby, her comment. Any other questions? Going once, going twice. Otherwise, thank you all for joining us today. And I'm sure you'll be hearing more from us regarding this issue. Thank you so much.
Thank you.